Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a paid advertising. TheOnlyGround.com, onlyground.com is one of the most amazing places for information that I consistently go to. If you guys want to have conversations about our old interviews or even topics that we don't discuss, the group of people that are on the onlyground.com message boards are some of the most brilliant that I have ever come across. Those little like knick-knack facts that we get here and there, that's where a lot of it comes from. Please check out the link in the bio.
Welcome to the show. I am MMA insider and Herb Dean's dog sitter, Joey Venti, and you're listening to the MMA History Podcast, the only podcast dedicated 100% to the preservation of mixed martial arts history. Interviews and stories about the early days of MMA direct from the men who lived it. Hundreds of interviews, thousands of hours of research, all conducted by the most obsessed mind in the business, the MMA detective Mike Davis. Join us as we document the history of the sport we all love. Welcome back to the MMA History Podcast. I am Joey Venti. I'm here with the host of the show, Mike Davis. He is the MMA detective. I am Herb Dean's dog sitter, and today we have a special episode for you. Our guest today was a pioneer of strong style pro wrestling, shoot fighting, and MMA, a veteran of the World Combat Championship and John Perretti's Extreme Fighting. He is the American Ninja, Bart Vale. Thanks for being here.
Happy to be here, guys.
Art, you are one of those like old school guys that was doing MMA before it was cool.
Yeah, I mean, it was, they called it wrestling at the time, which was kickboxing and grappling together. And, you know, they nicknamed it just wrestling is what it was called. And I had an opportunity to see it, and I fell in love with it. And I went over to Japan and started training in it.
It's really cool. So where does your start come from?
Well, I started in Tracy's karate with the Chinese Kempo.
Okay, so is that Jim and Al?
Actually, it was just Al and Jim. I never really had an opportunity to train with. It was just really Al. I met Will, which was the older brother, but again, Al was the one that pretty much ran everything in the Tracy system.
Okay, so at this time, like what year roughly? Like, give me a ballpark.
It had to be the early mid 80s is when I saw it, because I went over to Japan to start doing it in 86.
Okay, so let's, Joey, we're obliged to throw some old school names here. Count Dante, does that mean anything to you at this point?
I heard the name. Yeah, I heard the name.
Okay. Harold Howard.
Harold, I don't know who that is.
Okay.
Frank Duke.
Yeah, Frank Duke.
I heard of Frank Duke also. I don't know if any of his stuff was real or not. I know he was talking about doing some kind of underground fighting over in Japan, which I never heard of, because I did stuff like that over in Japan. So I don't know. I know that he kind of aggravated a lot of people in the real karate world, because I remember him coming out saying in 75 he was the kickboxing heavyweight champ. And at the time, it was actually Joe Hess. It wasn't Frank Dukes.
All right, so Joe Hess is the guy that had that intergender match.
You know,
It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. I just watched it a couple days ago.
Yeah, I know Joe Hess has done a lot in the martial arts world. A lot. And he was an incredible, still is, I hope, an incredible martial artist.
And Ron Van Clief, was he on your radar at all?
I met him a couple of times. Really never did anything with him. I did some stuff with his students. I met him a couple of times up north. I think one time at the Bluegrass Nationals, and then I think he had some tournament in New York that I attended.
Okay. So you're based in Florida. Your story is really interesting. So you're based in Florida, and then I mean, you say, well, then I just go to Japan. I, I'm not
Well,
sure it just kind of works that way. How does the jump happen?
well, what had happened was at one time I had 10 schools open, and we were doing a thing for MDA,
Muscular dystrophy?
right?
Okay.
Jerry Lewis thing that he did on that holiday every year, and we had raised with our kickathon, we had raised $5,000 for his MDA thing, and so they had contacted me and said, "Oh, you're going to have 30 seconds. We're going to be at the Aventura Mall. You'll have 30 seconds to do something on TV." So I didn't know what I was going to do. And one of my students said, "Well, why don't we kickbox for 30 seconds?" I said, "Okay, that'd be kind of cool." And so I went there. I did my 30 seconds in there. And then I'm getting out of the ring. And this Japanese guy came up to me as I was taking my belt off and my gi top and had to put my t-shirt back on. He came up to me and said, "I never seen an American guy so big like you kick so high and fast. Do you want to compete in Japan?" And I said, "Yeah." And he gave me an address to go to Tampa on the following weekend. So I went to Tampa. It was out in the woods in a barn. And I'm thinking of, oh, here, I'm in the woods here. I'm going to be slaughtered. And he pulls up with this little Japanese kid in the car, and we get out. We go into the barn. There's a ring in there. And he said he wanted me to spar with this Japanese kid, which was basically half my size.
Wait. Whose barn and ring was this? If you're talking Tampa area, are we talking? And I kind of got it loaded. Are we talking Malenko's?
No, it wasn't at Malenko's. Later on, as life went on, Malenko had a gym where they did the shoot style, and then he did American style.
Okay, so whose gym was this?
I have no idea. It was in a barn. It was literally in a barn. The only people I can remember, the soda machine they had, which was the grape soda, which I got a couple of grape sodas. It was only me, Soranaka, some other guy that never even did anything with us, and the Japanese kid. That's all that was there. That was it. And
did they ever ask you to smell this chloroform?
Yeah. No, I mean, again, I'm out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, literally out in the middle of nowhere.
It's like a Netflix series. This is how it starts.
Yeah.
It was strange because again, the address was in the middle of nowhere. They had a ring inside this barn. And so we went into the barn. I started to put my equipment on. I put my kicks on, and I started putting the boxing gloves on. And Soranaka says, "Oh, don't worry about the gloves." I said, "Well, I don't want to hit him in the head." He says, "Oh, don't worry. Hit him in the head as hard as you want. It don't matter." And so I was wearing kicks, no gloves. And again, I always lead with kicking. My first thing is coming off with the front leg roundhouse kick. I kind of picked up the whole Bill Wallace kind of kick thing there. And I started with that. And in a matter of seconds, this kid had me down on the ground, cranking my leg, cranking my arm. I'm yelling and screaming. I reminded them of Hiroshima and all this other crap. Soranaka's laughing and going, "Oh, I forget to tell you, almost like kickboxing." I said, "Bullshit, there's nothing like kickboxing. Kickboxing, you don't go to ground." He says, "Yes, almost." I said, "No." So then he started showing me these techniques, and I was fascinated at how easily he can manipulate a joint and hurt me like that. And the worst part about it is when you're laying down on the mat, I mean, I can understand when you do something with somebody standing, you can move around, you can step back, you can do stuff. But when you're laying on the mat and they're on top of you, heart to heart, you can't move. And all of a sudden, your arm's going one way and your leg's going the other way. And I just started yelling and screaming, "Okay, where's the dojo?" And Soranaka kept saying Japan. I says, no, really, where in the United States dojo? I want to learn this. Oh, Japan. I says, I argued with him for probably about 3-4 minutes about the dojo. And again, it was in Japan. And he said, don't worry, I take you. And he took me. I remember I was working at a nightclub, and the lady that owned the club was able to get me my passport like within 5 days. Got me my passport, and the following week I went to Japan, and I was there. And sorry,
how old are you? This is your introduction to grappling. You've done no grappling. How old a guy are you at this point?
I had to be I don't know, my mid-30s, early 30s.
Okay. There was a rumor that you used to lie about your age
all the time.
Okay, so that is true.
Right. Now I can't remember. now I can't even remember. Well, the only reason that I did that was because when I started training at the Tracy School, Tom Dunn was the one in charge, and they would not take kids. So I started when I was 12, but everybody thought I was 16 or 17.
Yeah, you're always a big kid. Okay.
Right. So, I was going okay with that. And I was always older. Just always older and stuff like that. It was just a couple of years ago, somebody found out I was the same age, and they go, you were 10 years older than me. And again, I always lied about my age because I didn't want people to think I was too old to be doing something or too young to be doing it. So I kind of just went with the flow on my age. So
your first trip to Japan. Here. All right. You go to this place in the woods in a barn.
Right.
You have this session. But then you got to go back to your other dojo, with Jim Tracy. Or Al Tracy.
Right. Al Tracy.
With Al.
Well, see, I was running my own schools.
Okay.
But I was originally under Al Tracy and Tom Dunn.
Okay.
And, at the time, I was a 4th degree black belt already in Chinese Kempo. And so I went back to the schools. I had my guys running the schools. And when I was getting ready to go to Japan, I had this one girl student that was very good. Peggy was her name. She was going to run the 8th Street School for me. Pedro was going to be there to help her. And then I had the guys in the other schools that were already running the schools.
You're talking about Peggy Hunt. Am I correct? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So she ran the school for me while I was gone.
Wow. Yeah. How was Al Tracy? Was he comfortable with this? You going to Japan, or
did you guys? Al was really open-minded about train wherever and whoever you can, whenever you can. The only person that I've ever had a problem with doing anything outside of the group was Ed Parker Sr. He didn't like me because I was able to go train with Ed Parker's instructor, William Chow. Because, in my world, I wanted to train with everybody and anybody that was anything. And I didn't care. I just wanted to train. And Al always encouraged me. Go over here. Go over here. Go train with that guy. Go do that guy. Go do this one. I said to Mr. Parker, when I was going to train with William Chow, he got mad, wrote me a letter saying, if you're having anything to do with my former instructor, I want nothing to do with you or your group.
What was do you think it was kind of like you were jumping?
I don't know. It kind of bothered me at the time. I would, especially with Al Tracy, always encouraging me, no matter what, always encouraging me to go train with this guy, go train with that guy, go do this with that guy. And Ed Parker, you just train with me. That's all you have to do.
Did you ever have a sit down with Ed after this, or was it just, it is what it is?
It was. I didn't want to have to clarify what I was doing. I used to go out and train with Ed Parker once a month in Pasadena. Sometimes we went to his house. Sometimes we went to his school. And this was back in the early 80s. I had to go train with him 3-hour minimum at $150 an hour.
Oh, wow.
Right. 3-hour minimum. One time when I was there, I spent 2 hours on the phone with Priscilla Presley, where she found another 8 rolls of film with Ed Parker and Elvis in it. and wanted to know if Ed wanted to write another book. And so I'm sitting downstairs, and Ed goes, well, let me go upstairs to look for whatever I'm going to look for, and handed me the phone. So I'm talking with her about just nothing really. And he went off to get whatever. Then he came back, like 40 minutes later with some stuff and talked to her. But again, and then when training with William Chow was incredible. I mean, it was always, and again, with William Chow, if I bought him lunch, he was happy. Buy him something to eat, he was happy as could be. But we would train hours and hours and just going through these steps. He had these 3-point steps, 5-point steps, and then he was talking about these 7-point steps, which we never got into that. I got into the 3s and the 5s, never got into the 7s. And again, once this Japanese stuff happened, I put Kempo in the back burner.
Okay. So when you mention Japanese stuff, you're talking about Fujiwara Gumi.
Yeah, the shoot style. Because again, remember, when I started this, it was called Universal Wrestling Federation. Then that company closed, and then it was called the UWF. And then the UWF had Maida, Takeda, and Fujiwara that were all pretty much superstars. And one night, they all got in an argument about money or drugs or whatever it was. I don't know what it was. I know it's not drugs, but it was something.
It certainly could have been, because that's what Pride was fueled with.
Yeah. Well, whatever. But my point being is they all decided to split up. Maida went off to do rings, Takeda went off to do international, and Fujiwara did the Gumi. And the problem that they had, which again, I was a little bit more of a business person than they all were together. And you can't cut the pie in 3 spots and expect to make the same amount of money. They all thought that if they all did a show at the Kodokan or one of the smaller venues, that they'll sell them out. The problem was at that point, nobody could sell out a show again, because you have some people that just want to see Maida. They won't go to Fujiwara or international. Some people just wanted to see Takeda. When they were all together, they had everybody there. We were the only company that sold out the Tokyo Dome. We had, 60,000 plus people there on a Wednesday afternoon. I was there on a Wednesday afternoon at 3:00 in the afternoon, and the place was sold out. That don't happen nowhere. We don't even have that happen in concerts here. If the Beatles were there. And as soon as they broke it all up, because they're all thinking, oh, well, we'll make all the money. I'll make all the money. And they would put the shows back to back at the same place on the same week. And instead of having 15,000 people, they'd only have 7. And they couldn't figure out why. And I kept saying, it's, expensive for a ticket. It was like $70 a ticket.
Oh, wow.
And you can't get these people to go there 3 times a month.
Okay, so you go to Japan. How long are you in Japan for at a time?
Usually, one time I stayed for 3 months. I had ended up getting my own apartment over in Japan. The company got me an apartment. I ended up getting my own car over in Japan. But I would go over there sometimes, try to stay 2 weeks, 3, and then come back. Because the place drove me crazy.
Oh, you didn't like Japan? You didn't like it?
You know what? The first couple of years was great. But after a while, it was kind of, it was just crazy for me. No English. Couldn't find no English. And that's how I came up with the name Shoot Fighting, because we're going to bring it to the States.
Well, wait, let me back up just a little bit. So you're over there working out in the gyms, obviously socializing. If you're over there months at a time and you've got a car, there was a rumor that you had a closed door match with Kimura. Is there any truth to that?
Kimura.
Did you and Kimura ever roll?
That was the underground fight.
Well, here in my notes, I do like these deep searches on the internet, and one of the things that a poster wrote was that Kimura broke your shoulder at one point.
No, that never happened.
Okay.
I mean, I might have rolled with him on some of the underground fights because we used to do underground fights over in Japan.
Okay.
But they were more.
Did you ever get your shoulder broken?
No, my shoulder was never broken. I mean, I had the right ligaments removed just recently because they were all torn up. I can't bring my right hand over my shoulder no more. I mean, over my head.
Did you ever, at the school in Toronto on the second floor of the mini mall, did you ever have a match with any of the Machados?
I worked out with one of the Machados. Yeah.
How did the session go?
We started off, again, I started with my front leg lead roundhouse kick. And then they stopped it because I didn't hit him, but I came real close to doing a hook kick to his head. And then I think Bob Wall was there, and they said that let's just grapple, and so they grappled, and as I spun around, rolled down, and tried to do a rolling knee bar, I came down on my shoulder and dislocated my shoulder.
Okay.
That was the first time that damaged that, is because I missed. I wanted to try to do a rolling knee bar as I spun around, and as I dove down to get his leg, I don't know if he let go or stepped back, but I went straight down on my shoulder, and Bob Wall had to take me to the hospital, and they had to put it back in.
You know what? I wonder if that's what they were mentioning.
Yeah, well, that's very possible. I had an opportunity to work out with them. Bob Wall wanted me to work out with them because he loved the Machados, and they're good. I mean, they're good at what they do.
Legit.
And again, you got to remember, I never did no grappling, and they never did no kickboxing. So to me, when I did the hook kick to the head, and it went right past his head, he kind of freaked out because he didn't know how to block a kick. He didn't know how to do any kickboxing. But Bob Wall says, well, let's just grapple. And then, if you want to just kickbox, we could just kickbox. Because back in those days, either you kickboxed or you grappled. Nobody did both. Nobody.
Yeah.
And see, that's what we started, was everything started as a kickboxing. And if you could take the guy to the ground, you grapple. And when you went when we went over in Japan to that, we used to kick the crap out of each other on the ground. And somebody ended up cracking their cheekbone. So they made a rule. And in fact, I got the rule book that was made in '89. It was a modified one. It was the second edition, to where if you're on the ground, one knee on the ground, you only grapple. No kicking, no punching on the ground. If you're standing, you can kick and punch. If one guy's down on the knee and you're standing, can't kick and punch. You either wait for him to stand up or you grapple.
And this is with what organization?
This was with the Fujiwara Gumi.
Okay, with Fujiwara Gumi.
Yeah, because we had a lot of people get hurt. I mean, we had a lot of people get hurt for real. And again, you got to remember, we were making this stuff up as we went along. We had no idea what we were doing.
You had mentioned Soranaka earlier. That was Karl Gotch's son-in-law.
Correct.
What was your experience with him?
With Soranaka?
Yeah.
That is great. Great. He was an awesome guy. Him and I did some business stuff outside the whole fighting thing. We started a line of vitamins over in Japan. We were selling Reebok shoes over there. I mean, Soranaka was great. I mean, really, really was good. Real good businessman too.
Did you ever get on the mat with Karl Gotch?
Yeah, Karl Gotch. He hurt you. He hurt you even practicing. Karl Gotch was freaking incredible. We had a thing. Jerry Flynn was working at this club with these, bulky muscle steroid guys, And this one kid that was like 18 or 19 years old was, being a badass about how he could kick anybody's ass. And Jerry Flynn said to him, says, we got a 65-year-old man to kick your ass. The guy's going, oh, bullshit. And that was Saturday night. And so we worked out at Malenko's gym on Saturday and Sunday. And we started at 9 o'clock. And Jerry got there a little bit earlier because I was always early. And so Jerry was telling me the story. And then, Karl came in, and Karl stands in the back corner and he starts to, rotate his wrist and head, doing just goofy little exercises to warm up.
That Dean Malenko type when they're announcing his name. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So anyhow, the kid shows up. So I went over to Karl and I told him about this kid, how he could kick anybody's ass. And Karl gets into the ring, and there's 4 of us sitting there while Karl talks to us, and then has this kid get in. And this kid tried hard to hurt Karl, and Karl just basically mopped the floor with him. But what was so embarrassing was telling us what he was going to do before he did it. And this kid couldn't do crap about it. And
wow.
Jerry said the kid never came back to work. Never saw him again, ever. But Karl was incredible. In fact, I just found an old DVD because I had some stuff when we were over in Japan. I was filming some stuff with Karl down in that. And he was Karl was quite a character. Incredible grappler.
Joey's one of the LeBell guys. Karl Gotch. Yeah, Karl Gotch and Gene LeBell, super tight.
Yeah, they really were.
2 old school catch guys. Did you roll with Gene LeBell at all?
I never rolled with him. I mean, we worked out with him, but I never had the opportunity to actually lock up with him and do anything. We had we went out there to train with him a couple of times when he was with go-kart. And so we would work out with go-karts group and everything like that while Gene was just coaching us.
Okay.
But again, Gene was too old to do it.
Would you say he was another sadist, kind of like Karl? Like our Karl Gotch?
There ain't nobody like Karl Gotch.
Really?
Gene LeBell could be close to it, but there was nobody like Karl Gotch. Except for maybe Hitler.
Really? He was that mean?
Oh, Hitler.
Yeah. I mean, Karl Gotch, he was mean. He'd get a hold of you at 65 years old because he would do this stuff in the ring. He would do it. I remember one time, when he was trying to do technique on me, we're both standing and he had both his hands on my one hand. And I was talking about, well, what happens if I just kick you? You're sitting there trying to do that, but he didn't believe in kicking or anything like that. It was just all grappling. And again, I didn't try to kick because all he did was twist my wrist and I was down on the mat. So yeah, Karl Gotch wasn't somebody you'd want to mess with. That's for sure. But he got in there all the time. He worked out with us all the time. I mean, we did it at the Malenko's gym, but the best was when we were in Japan because they bring him over there like a god, and then he'd spend the whole time at the Fujiwara Gumi and just work us out.
Wow.
It was a blast. I was just fortunate to be there at the right time.
It's actually pretty cool.
Yeah,
for sure.
It was real neat for me. I mean, if I didn't go, and I almost didn't go to that MDA thing because I had a big 4x4 truck that had these 44-inch tires on it, but it had little studs, so it would just rip the tire right off. And I was going to spend that weekend to put the new studs on the truck. I just ordered these bigger studs I was going to put on. And my student's mom calls and goes, no, he wants to go. You got to go. I'll come pick you up and take you there because he really wants to be on TV and do this and everything like that. And I mean, I literally almost didn't go that Aventura thing for MDA. I mean,
Wow.
I sent them the check, but I really wasn't going to go. And had I not gone, that never would have happened. But me going there for that 30 seconds is all I was there. And Soranaka and his wife were walking by in the Aventura Mall and stopped to watch this because the ring was there. Some guy was, chopping boards, and he just stopped to watch. And again, it was just me and my student in the ring. And he watched that and talked to me after I got out.
And then he said, "I'd like to take you to a woods in a secluded barn in Tampa."
He didn't say that. He said,
and
"Would you like to
choke the
compete
fuck
in
out of you.
Japan?" And I said, "Sure." So he gave me an address to go over in Tampa.
Right.
And that's when I ended up in the woods. Going, oh,
Change your life.
Deliverance.
Right.
I'm going, oh no.
Not this again.
Yeah, again in the woods. But hey, and I tell people a story all the time. You just don't know what's going to happen that could change your life for real. And that is a moment that I'll remember forever, because I almost didn't go. Those tires were coming off. I mean, there was no doubt about it. I didn't want to go, but my student's mom calls me, talks to me, and if I didn't go, that would have never happened. There's no way I would have met Soranaka or any of these guys.
So what are we doing now? I guess we should have started there, Joey. What are you doing now? Where are you living at?
I'm still in South Florida, in Fort Lauderdale. I still train people. I still have the shoot fighting organization, smaller now. After COVID, I mean, everything just died. I mean, it just died. And now, between this year and a little bit of last year, people are starting to come back. I train. I have about 8 students that I go to their house and train them. I have about 6 students. I got a smaller place now. It's more realistically a storage place, but they don't mind if I teach private classes there. And I do that, and trying to get things going again. I mean, some of the schools dropped out, closed, and I got 2 of them so far. The guys from Finland just contacted me. It had to be 3 days ago. Wanted to get back involved, wanted to see if I wanted to still come out there and train them and do all that stuff. And it's maybe trying to make it come back here. But that COVID screwed up everything.
Is it true you own the term shoot fighting? You've patented that?
I registered the name shoot fighting. And like I said, that's what happened was when we were going to bring this to the States, and they wanted to call it wrestling. Now
you said this, you're talking Fujiwara.
The
okay.
shoot style.
Okay, so Fujiwara, I mean, Bart, I'm not trying to peel the curtain back too far. Sometimes it's real, sometimes it's not. I mean,
well, what happened was, see, when we did the underground fights, they were considered a work.
Okay.
And by work, that's a wrestling term. But what it was because the first time I did an underground fight was for the Yakuza. They had a club, and we had 3 matches that were going to happen, and everybody had to go 30 minutes. And I said to Soranaka, I says, how can we go 30 minutes? He says, more practice, less hurt. So that was my first encounter of being able, like, I used to train with Trevik Burbick, and we'd get all geared up like that to go 3 rounds where we didn't beat the crap out of each other, but we trained, and it took us longer to get geared up. And I said to Trevik Burbick, why are we doing this? He says, you don't want to get hurt training. So basically, when they did these underground fights, it was more or less just training. Like when I go into the dojo to train with somebody, you train, you work your technique, you practice your technique. And that was my first encounter. Okay. But when they did their shoot style, some of them was, I mean, for the most part, it was all a shoot until the end. It could be this guy's up, this guy's down. But sometimes on the lower stages, that never happened.
So predetermined, but not choreographed.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that's fair. I mean, sometimes it didn't happen that way. Sometimes it happened with,
You know, the guy, when I did the one fight after the thing like that, you know, I spun around and stomped on the guy's face and cracked his face.
Okay.
And I wasn't supposed to do that.
Okay. Just so let me set the table for everybody at home. Pancrase, rings, Shudo, and Pride all stemmed from heads of pro wrestling, like JMMA. All of it, 100% of it, the start comes from the world of pro wrestling and that shoot style. And like Pancrase had 2 events before UFC 1, and they were legit events. So like it wasn't just the UFC planting their flag going, hey, look what we figured out. This is what we're going to do. It's an art that had been going on in Japan for many, many, many years. Forgotten.
Well, even before that, it was over in Greece. I forget what they called it over in Greece.
Pancration.
Right. They did it over in Greece.
You're talking about like Olympics type stuff?
Yeah, it was.
I mean, that was
kickboxing, wrestling. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Nothing new was invented.
No, it died. It got brought back to life is what happened.
Nothing new was invented. And like I said, they wanted to bring it over here in the States to do some matches in the States. And they were going to call it wrestling. Now, the only problem we had is the shoot style wrestling is different than the Dusty Rhodes wrestling.
Right.
And over here in the States, nobody knew the shoot style. They just knew Dusty Rhodes. So I was saying to these guys, we can't call it wrestling because none of the fans that want to do kickboxing and stuff like that will show up. And so we had to come up with a different name. So we're sitting in the office there, and there was a videotape there. And I'm looking at the videotape, and, you know, again, these guys are all talking in Japanese. I don't know squat of Japanese. And, you know, Soranaka say something to me in English. I would say something back. He would explain it in Japanese. But I saw a tape over there, the cover of a tape that said shoot, SHOOT. And in my world, I thought it was guns. You know, they're going to shoot guns.
Huh.
So I said to Soranaka, would it be okay if I take that videotape home tonight and watch it? I just wanted to see English. Okay. I didn't give a crap. I just wanted to hear somebody talk. Look at the dove. I mean, I just wanted to hear English. I was starting to forget it. And he hands me the tape, and there's these wrestlers on it. I said, what the hell does this have to do with shooting guns? He goes, no, stupid. He says, shoot is a real wrestler. It's a shooter. So I said, shoot boxing. And Soranaka said, we don't wear gloves. So then I said, shoot fighting. Soranaka loved the name. The president of the company loved the name. Fujiwara hated it. He wanted to call it kick, suplex, submission style. And Soranaka talked him out of that.
All right. So you're in Japan in the 80s.
Correct.
And you're making all the contacts over there, working out the gyms. But Fujiwara Gumi, which blurred the line. Let's put it this way. Without Fujiwara Gumi, Pride Fighting Championship never exists. And that's a fact. I don't care. I mean, I'll die on that hill. And Fujiwara Gumi started March 4th, 1991 by you know, Funaki, Suzuki, and obviously Fujiwara.
Well, it started with those with Fujiwara, and again, Funaki and Suzuki were part of the group. Correct.
Okay.
And then Fujiwara took some of the American guys, and some of them. I mean, Takada didn't want any of them. Takada didn't want any American guys or anything like that. He was going to build his own group. Rings wanted to take some Americans, but he didn't want to take any of the Americans that Fujiwara had. So pretty much everybody that was American stayed with the Fujiwara Gumi.
Okay. But you had said you guys made a little extra money doing like shoots and works in front of the Yakuza.
Right. We did underground fights.
Okay, so how involved was the Yakuza in Fujiwara Gumi?
I mean, I know Soranaka's brother was in it. To what extent, I don't know.
God.
I don't know.
So Karl Gotch married into a Yakuza family, essentially.
Wow. Let's not say that too loud.
Okay, I'll whisper it.
I know that something to that effect is pretty much what I understood.
And Karl Gotch and the Malenkos were super close. Wow.
Yeah, well, Larry and Karl were real close.
Soranaka
Dean
the
Malenko hated Karl, and Karl hated him. Joe and Karl got along great. But I think the reason Dean didn't get along is because Dean didn't do what Karl wanted him to do. Karl, would bark out these orders, and everybody would do them except for Dean. Dean would tell him to piss off. So Dean never got along really good with Karl.
Where do you think the issues therein lied?
Well, I mean, like anything. I mean, why would Dean want to take orders from Karl? Karl wasn't some big superstar as far as Dean was concerned.
There was also an age thing in pecking order. I would certainly say Karl outranked him in both of those.
Yeah, well, I would too. I mean, you got to show certain respect for people, but Dean never did. Dean didn't like Karl at all.
When I saw UFC 1, probably about the second or third one, I was fully expecting Dean Malenko to make an appearance because he had all the tools, had the skill set, the family lineage, and I was surprised he didn't make a run. I thought he was going to be the first pro wrestler making a run in the UFC or even Pride.
No, he won't do nothing like that.
Huh.
I figured Jody might.
I spoke to Jody last week in preparation for this interview. Sounds fantastic still.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's always been a good guy.
How would you say the reception, like you're there in 91 with Fujiwara Gumi. How does Ken Shamrock come over? Because that was Japan's first look at Ken Shamrock.
Right. At the time, he was Wayne.
Yeah, Wayne Shamrock. Yeah.
Wayne Shamrock. And you go, again, remember, we had to get fighters. And so I was in charge of anybody that was American going over. I would give like I had this one guy, Bobish, that I was going to take over there, but
Dan Bobish?
Right.
Yeah.
His instructor, which was a tiny little guy, was like 5'2". He didn't want me to bring Bobish over there. He said I should bring him over instead of Bobish. And I said, listen, you don't got no talent. Bobish has some talent. I mean, Bobish would have did great over in Japan, but his instructor that was running the school in Independence, Ohio, wouldn't let me take Bobish over.
Oh, Marcus, was it Marcus?
Yeah, that's the guy's name, Marinelli or something like that.
Yeah, it's he
kind of got mad because I was going to take Bobish over and not him. But you got to understand that this guy, he may be great. I never seen him do anything, but he was like 5'2", and you don't stand up next to somebody like Bobish or somebody my height and then look intimidating. Bobish looked intimidating.
Yeah,
whether he could do anything or not was a different story. But again, he looked apart. It's kind of like what they said about that guy from the Blind Side. Looks like Tarzan, but fights like Jane.
Yeah, well, Bobish was a 3-time All-American wrestler. I mean, granted, it was Division III, but the guy could move. Like he was he was a big heavyweight that could move for sure.
Yeah, I know, but his instructor would not let me take him because we were going back to how Shamrock got in was I was the one that was going to get Americans to go over there, pick them and take them and train them or whatever. And so the night before, Soranaka, I think through Dean Malenko, knew Wayne or Ken and said something to Soranaka, and Soranaka says, well, let him come to the gym because Bart has to give the okay. But the night before, he got in a fight with the Nasty Boys. He went up to their room to kind of confront them. And as he walked in the room, one of the Nasty Boys just took the phone and just beat the shit out of him with the phone.
I heard that.
You know?
It's kind of.
Yeah, I thought that was way later in his career.
Yeah,
That was in Japan?
No. That was in America here before he even went to Japan.
Before he got to Japan. Okay.
Before I even met him. He couldn't show up for the tryouts on that day. And Soranaka, because of Dean. See, he was doing something with Dean, and they were going to cut Dean because Shamrock couldn't work with anybody. Shamrock was in his own world. So they were going to cut because I think Dean Malenko and Wayne Shamrock were doing something. And I think in Bubba's group, maybe. I don't know. All Japan, maybe. But they went to Dean and says, they were upset because, again, Dean's father, the great Malenko, had some ties there, and they didn't want to get rid of Dean, but they couldn't keep Dean as long as Shamrock was with Dean. So they had to cut both Dean and Shamrock unless you could get Shamrock to want to quit. And that's when Dean came to Soranaka and asked if he could try out on our team. And that's kind of helped Dean to get rid of Shamrock. He got his butt kicked from the Nasty Boys, couldn't show up for our tryouts.
So this was like in 92 is when that took place? 91? Or probably 92.
I think even earlier than that.
Oh, so that's just an old story. So they kicked his ass before they knew who he was.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Oh, yeah. Without doubt. But so we got him to come over to our company so Dean could still do what he was doing and everybody was happy.
Would you say Ken was difficult to deal with?
Extremely. Ken had his own way of doing things.
Can you give us an example?
Whatever the group would say, Ken would say the different. It didn't matter. He always did that. It always seemed like it just seemed like he was, I don't think you could play team sport as far as I was concerned.
Was he known for hurting guys in the ring? Did he have a lack of control?
I don't know if he had a lack of control or just didn't care much. But yeah, he always ended up hurting somebody for no apparent reason. And that's not good when you're training.
So let's talk about your incident with Ken Shamrock. How does it come about?
Which one?
Oh, well, dude, if there's more than one, by all means, I want to know all of them.
Well, I mean, the problem I have with Ken is when we were doing fights here in the States, I wanted to have Americans against the Japanese. And so I'm putting this whole show together myself. The Japanese are helping me financially, but I'm doing all the work. So Ken calls me up. He's coming in on this and this day to make sure I pick him up. So I pick him up. And then, he just, as soon as I pick him up, he starts barking orders about what I should be doing and how I should be doing it and what I should be doing. Because I'm trying to tell him what we're doing for the show, how we're going to do it. And then he's trying to change things. And I said, listen, it's already set. He says, why didn't you go over this with me before we did this? I said, because you're not doing this. I am. When you do yours, I'll be happy to work with you. I don't like people like that to come in there after I did all the work to change things.
Bart, it's one of those classic things where if you can't tell me yes, why would I ever listen to your no?
Right.
You got no skin in the game. You didn't promote it. You got no money involved.
And then the funny thing, because me and Jerry Flynn made fun of him because he gets in the ring and he gets ready to pull his jacket or sweatshirt off, but he forgot to unzip it. So he's trying to get his big ass head out of the little thing. up in the ring trying to pull the thing over his head, and he couldn't get it. It was funny. Me and Jerry just cracked up for like 30, 40 seconds because he couldn't get his head out of his jacket. Yeah, but again, that was just his way. You know, we were over there in Japan one time, and we had an interview, and he's telling everybody he doesn't do steroids.
Huh.
Right? Okay, so he's telling everybody he doesn't do steroids or anything like that. So we're all going to go out. So me and Jerry are already ready because we're ready. But we go to Ken's room, and so we knock on the door. Ken lets us in. He's getting ready to jump in the shower. So me and Jerry are sitting on the bed. Ken's in the shower, and Jerry picks up a bottle that you use with syringes. I didn't know how steroids were, so I said to Jerry, I go, "What's that?" He goes, "This is steroids." And so Ken gets out of the shower, and Jerry holds it in front of him and goes, "Hey, what the fuck is this?" And he goes, "Oh, that's just to maintain."
Huh.
Yeah. And Jerry, and I said to him, I said, "You just told everybody you don't do steroids." "I don't do steroids. That's just to maintain."
Semantics.
And so
I believe him. I don't
just,
care what you guys say.
I didn't know what to take on that. But anyhow, so, you know, hey, you know, if he's doing them, he should do them. I mean, there were a lot of bodybuilders said, "Yeah, I take him under a doctor's care." Great. If you want to do it, fine. You know, but don't sit there and lie. You don't do it, you know, especially when we're talking about the kids and stuff like that. You know, not to do it, and then he's doing it.
So you had a wrestling match with Ken Shamrock where you knocked him out.
Yeah, straight palm to the head. I think that straight palm to the head is what did it, because I could have sworn that I cracked his nose, because when I hit it, I felt it.
Was this like a predetermined thing that turned into a shoot, or was it a work and you didn't pull it?
I think it was a shoot before it started.
Oh, so there was legitimate heat between you two, huh?
Yeah, because, you know, again, he talks a whole lot of crap. And then, you know, we get in there, and again, I have a problem of not starting real aggressive. I've always been the type of person that kind of takes the first round to feel out what's going on. And somewhere in there, I can remember him, you know, smacking me in the back of the head. And I remember one on my right side, so he must have hit me because he was standing behind me. He did a real nice palm strike to my mastoid, because, you know, I felt it in the front of my head. And that's when it was game on then. And then when he came at me with his hands down, I came in with that straight palm, and I felt that nose. I mean, it felt like something crunched. And that was it.
You also landed a couple of good head kicks on him at the end too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I did 3 roundhouse kicks to the head, but I think it was that straight palm that did it.
Okay. What were the conversations like afterward in the locker room?
I don't think we ever had conversations in the locker room. I mean, we had the FU kind of thing in the locker room. You know, it wasn't a whole lot of conversations.
Did the bosses get involved?
No, I mean, you know, not even Fujiwara. I mean, nobody really got involved. I mean, after every match, there was always some heat going on. Every match. You know, it didn't matter who it was. There was always some kind of heat going on. And I mean, there were a lot of times after the match and that I just got dressed and went out, and I couldn't go out with the crowd. So I would just go out into the back of the arena and then go out the back door just to be away from everybody. I mean, sometimes it was just, you know, sometimes just aggravating altogether.
Was it just a little toxic in the locker room?
Yeah, I mean, you know, everybody, you know, The worst one I ever had is when I was in Russia. I mean, when I went to Russia over there to compete, that was even worse. I mean, everybody's ego, everybody's the best, everybody's the greatest, and everybody talking all kinds of crap. What they're going to do and who they're going to do and what they're going to do it to. And, sometimes it was aggravating.
Did the Yakuza ever approach you and try to make business with you?
No, nothing at all. I remember doing the international phone cards.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And the Yakuza was in charge of those that I didn't understand until Soranaka told me, because I had met some guy that was not Japanese, not American. And he would give me one phone card for every 10 used ones I got. I mean, and again, that was the closest I heard of me doing anything with the Yakuza.
Okay.
Because according to Soranaka, they were in charge of all that phone stuff, that making those phony cards.
I'm going to kind of go out on a limb here. So Pride FC, it was essentially fueled by the drug trade coming from the Netherlands. Like the fighters, it was kind of like two mafia factions got together, made business, and boom, Pride takes place. Obviously the face of the organization is the Yakuza, but the gas and the engine, some of it is coming from the Netherlands. Was that drug trade also very prevalent with Fujiwara and the pro wrestling circuit?
No, I never saw anything like that with the Fujiwara group. I didn't see anything like that with the Pride group either.
Come on, bro.
So I mean, I don't know if that's true or not. I know that Pride had a lot of the guys from Holland over there.
That's the Netherlands. Yes, Holland.
Right. Yeah. Like Dick Fry and those guys.
Yeah.
But whether that happened or not, I don't know. I really don't. I try to stay out of everybody's business. I just wanted to do my own thing, hang out, train, work out, get in and get out. I didn't want to get friendly with anybody. I didn't want to know anybody's business. I didn't care. I mean, I was one time there, I got to be real good friends with Animal and Hulk.
Hawk and Animal. Oh,
right.
Wow.
Animal was incredible. I mean, a beast. And they invited me to a gym. I was at a gym one time, and the guy is doing like 500 pounds in a bench, but incline.
Oh, wow.
Right. And Animal was the one benching it, and Hawk was the one, shooting some steroids in his trap as he was lifting. And I just mind my own business, didn't say anything about it, didn't think anything about it, and just, did my own thing, worked out. And I mean, the guy standing next to me, his arm was bigger than my whole body. I mean, just incredible. But, I go there, work out. I mean, the one guy, I was there with Colonel Kirchner, or Corporal Kirchner.
Corporal Kirchner. I remember him.
And he ended up in jail for like 90 days. They were in Japan doing their little stupid skit. Some guy sitting on the bar stool and spun around and was supposed to hit somebody, to do their little skit inside this bar, but ended up hitting this guy on the stool. He fell off, and instead of apologizing and helping the guy up and everything like that, they sat there laughing at him and making fun of him. Well, by the time these guys got back to the hotel, the police were there. He was locked up in jail for like 6 months, eating bread and water for like 2 days, bread and water twice a day for like 6 months. And I mean, they're serious over there. I mean,
yeah.
No phone call, no trial, no innocent until proven guilty. just plain guilty. And I say to these guys all the time, you're in somebody else's neighborhood. You can't do the same stupid crap we do here. They get on top of the rooftop there and they're pissing off there on people walking by. I'm going like, I'm out of here because you guys have no clue what's going to happen.
No, their streets are clean for a reason. They don't take any
I know.
shit.
They got ashtrays on the corner. I was there one time with Norman Smiley, and we're at a bus bench, and there's these big color TVs in the bus bench there, and we both look at each other. Now Norman comes from Miami, a rough part of Miami. I was in Miami also, where if you don't lock your car, they're going to steal it. And so Norman goes to me, he goes, God, can you believe these TVs are just sitting here like nobody's going to steal them? I says, yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to get them on the airplane. I said, I'm going to steal them right here. But yeah, I mean, just over there, it's
different.
A different culture.
So just so everybody at home, like, this is a history podcast, and there's a couple other people in the game whose work is like, it's truly incredible. William Colosimo is one of those guys. You did an interview with William Colosimo, I want to say a little bit over a year ago. It is one of the most incredible reads that I have, like detailed. Like, have you sat down? How many times did you have to sit down with William Colosimo to complete that interview? Do you know who he is?
I know the name. I don't know who he is, though, to tell you the honest truth.
He's printing a book. He gave little excerpts online of his interview with you. It's one of the most insanely detailed things I've ever read in my entire life. I cannot wait for his book to come out. Anyway, from that interview, I was able to take in March of 1992. All right, so you guys kind of look at the time frame here. November of 1993, Denver, UFC 1 takes place. In March of 1992, you do a Shoot Fighting Florida promotion.
Right.
Where you have like the entire undercard is real fights.
Right. That was the first fight we did over here in the States. That was our first one, was in March. That we brought the Japanese over to compete against Americans. And I remember I did the 30-second commercial, and I had me jumping up Funaki. I mean, I have a clip of where Funaki caught my leg, and I jumped up and I roundhouse kicked him in the head and knocked him out. And so on this clip, I put that part of it in my commercial, my 30-second commercial, and I jump up, kicking Funaki in the head, and it ends up freezing, saying, "Come watch the Americans beat the Japanese again."
Oh man.
Yeah.
So you had real fights on that. So like, technically speaking, well, here, the first one is Gene LeBell in like was it 1963? I want to say it was, but it was on national TV. Yeah. Milo Savage.
Right.
But fast forward 30 years, we got yourself in March of 92, February of 93, and October of 93. So you did 3 events stateside under the NHB rule set.
Right.
Some of the matches under the NHB rule set.
Right. I don't even think at the time that it was. Yeah, it had to be NHB. I don't know.
There's no rules.
Right.
Yeah, you had John Lana versus Herman
Costello. Yeah, Costello.
Was it Costello?
Right.
Gus Garcia, Richard Clark, Ozzy Alvarez, Pedro Goodrich.
So Peggy was the referee on that.
Joey, that's the caveat. The first woman referee in a mixed martial art event is Peggy Hunt.
Right.
Pre-UFC.
Pre-UFC.
Before UFC even knew they were going to be born. We are already doing it.
Incredible.
How was the reception from the audience? Were they confused or were they into it?
They were a little confused. and but they caught on very quickly. They caught on very quickly. I was really surprised.
Yeah.
You know, and it was great. I mean, I think our first event we did, we had over 4,500 people.
Wow.
Yeah, it was at the James L. Knight Center. And we did a good event. We did a real good event, and you know, we had I think we had 8 fights on that night.
Yeah, that's incredible. We had mentioned a name earlier. I don't want it to kind of go away. Martin Marinelli. He was one of your affiliates back in the day, and he's now got Strong Style, the Strong Style Fight Team, which is out of Cleveland, where Stipe Miocic was based out of.
All right.
What were your dealings like with him?
I'm trying to. I don't think his name was Martin, was it?
Well, Marinelli said it earlier. Let me get it.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, what happened was I had Al Tracy had set me up when he saw this shoot style. He was just blown away. So what he did was he set up a seminar for me to come into his school. We had 97 people there to go to this seminar on the shoot style. And I sparred with every one of them. And I think Marcus, that's his name,
Marcus Marinelli.
Yeah, Marcus was there. Keith Kurtz was there. Robert Yard was there. Mike Dankel was there. Mike Dankel and John Wass still run schools for me in Ohio. They were there. And Keith Kurtz, he said to me, he says, I did 2 kicks to his leg, and he said he was done. He said he couldn't even stand up again. But, you know, that's everybody was enlightened at that time of the shoot style. And, you know, throwing them down on the ground and do a figure 4 arm bar or doing a sleeper from the ground or a heel hook or an ankle lock. These guys were fascinated by it. And so then these guys started inviting me to their schools. And again, Marcus was one of them that had the school in Independence. And he started to train with me because his instructor, that was Mark Miller. Mark Miller was in charge of all the Tracy schools in Ohio. And again, I had to go through Mark Miller before I could go with anybody there. So, you know, I came out there. Mr. Tracy set it up. I came out there to Marcus's school, and Mark Miller was there, and Mike Dankel and a couple of the other guys were there. And, you know, I worked out with them. And again, Marcus started to run a school, teaching a shoot style in his school, you know, besides doing just the Kempo, because he was also doing the Chinese Kempo. And so they started doing the shoot style there. And then, you know, as time went on, like everybody else, they want to reinvent the wheel, or they decide to be better than their instructor, or they don't need their instructor no more. And then they break away and make up their own crap. And it's funny because we always called it the strong style. I mean, Fujiwara called it the strong style, but the Kyoshokai was the name for the strong style. And again, you know, Marcus couldn't use the name shoot fighting because it's registered. So he had to change it to the strong style or something else so that he could have that loophole. You know, but the worst part was not giving Dan that opportunity. It kind of pissed me off because I know I could have made Dan a superstar over in Japan. There's no doubt about it. He was very, very talented. I remember even doing hands with him, just hands and feet, just kickboxing. And he was really good for as big as he was. I mean, he was really quick. He was really good. And I remember there were 3 individual times I said to Marcus, let's bring Dan over. Let's bring Dan over. Well, no, he's not ready. I don't think he'll do as good as I would do. And it's funny because Marcus is like 5'2". You know, he wants to go over to Japan where, you know, you're standing up against these guys that are, you know, and our guys had to be 6 foot plus is what we were reaching for. Now, don't get me wrong.
Unless you're a manager. Yeah, unless you're a manager. That's it.
Well, at the beginning, we didn't have a whole lot of 6 foot people. I mean, Takeda was 6 foot over. Fujiwara is, Maida was, but some of the other guys weren't. But the only problem was when they made the rule, I couldn't bring over a person that's 5'2". Marcus's wife was bigger than him. But he kept, and Bobish had won some kind of title.
King of the Cage.
Something. Yep. And King of the Cage. Yeah, you're right. And so we went out to dinner, me, Marcus, and Dan. And Dan was already there. Me and Marcus always drove. And I said, shit, look, he's King of the Cage now. Why don't we bring him over to Japan? No, we don't need to. He's not good enough for Japan yet. Well, whatever.
Yeah, when he made his Japan debut, I mean, he went up against just 3 murderers, like 3 of the top, out of the top 5 guys in the entire company. Bobish fought 3 of them, like just absolute savages.
No favors.
No. In the first bout, it was like a weird finger to the eye, which was absolutely legit, but like they really kind of played it up like it wasn't. In the second 2 fights where he lost, he showed durability in his legit showing. Like they got their money's worth out of him. Yeah, I respect Dan a lot.
Yeah, he was good.
What do you remember when Suzuki and Funaki left Fujiwara and started Pancrase?
I was pissed. I mean, again, to do something like that, to Fujiwara, because without Fujiwara, these guys were nobody. And it always bothered me when somebody, does it just like Marcus did to me. When you actually have somebody that builds you, and then you just kind of shit on them. And that's exactly what Funaki and Suzuki did to Fujiwara. And I remember when he first brought them over, I mean, I was already there when Funaki and Suzuki weren't even nobody. And I remember Soranaka going, this Funaki guy's really good with his hands, which was great for me because I did hands and feet. But Funaki stunk. He told me Funaki was a boxer. I don't know. Maybe he boxed in a women's league because he kept his head straight up, shoulders down. He didn't know how to cover up. And he's boxing. And then Suzuki was a great wrestler. And Suzuki's wrestling stunk. Just stunk. And again, I basically beat Suzuki only because of the fact that I was bigger than him.
There was a lot of fake fights involving those 2 in the Pancrase organization.
Yep.
Joey, we go over that a lot.
They don't even know what real and fake is. But to do that to Fujiwara, I mean, I just lost so much respect for them.
Did Fujiwara ever address this with you?
Nope. I did though. I don't play like that. I get mad when somebody does something like that. I mean, I get mad. And there's nothing that could change that on me for what they did to Fujiwara, because I would never do something that, bite the hand that feeds you. I mean, these guys were nobody. Funaki couldn't box. There's no way he could tell me he boxed. Okay. He had no clue to boxing. All right. And again, if he boxed, he had to box in a women's league. Not to take anything away from women, but he had his shoulders down, didn't bring his hands up, just goofy. And to do that to Fujiwara when he brought them in, gave them a start, because they would have never made it anywhere. They wouldn't have been nobody. And then they get popular through Fujiwara, and then to turn around and stab him like that.
Yeah.
No.
In 1995, you're on the cover of Black Belt magazine featuring you and Renzo Gracie. It was to promote an event, the World Combat Championships, October 17th, 1995. It was an 8-man tournament.
Correct.
They really marketed that show with you and Renzo coming to a head.
I know. And I even said before we even got in there, I said, why don't we have me and Renzo fight first? They don't want to do that. They wanted to do that like that. And then, of course, I had my eye cut open, and the guy the doctor was trying to sew it. He couldn't sew worth the crap. He kept saying, I have tough skin. I kept telling him he has a blunt needle. I left the doctor's office or whatever it was in the back there, went to my trainer, who was Tony Palomore. I had him finish stitching me.
So Tony, the 2-time world kickboxing champion, stitched you.
Right. He stitched me up in that. And then I said, let's go. And then they won't let me go back out. They won't let me go back out. The doctor came. And again, the doctor couldn't stitch me. He kept going, you got tough skin. I go, you got a blunt needle. Because he didn't know what he was doing. I don't know what end of the needle he was using, but kept pushing it. It wasn't going in the skin. I got up. I left. String hanging down my eye. No big deal. Tony finished sewing and that. And then we're getting ready to go back out. And the doctor says, no, you're not going back out. You're injured.
A bad doctor at an MMA show in the 90s? I don't believe it.
No. And that's now we've crossed the line. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, retard.
Yeah.
Did your eye get busted open? Was that from a headbutt? That was a rough fight. I watched it again last night.
Yeah, I just see that's
it's Mike Petonio.
Yes.
It's Mike Petonio. Just somebody
Henzo. I was gonna headbutt the shit out of him. Okay, that was my plan. But this guy, Mike Petonio, started pulling my hair.
Yes.
And all of a sudden I got pissed. And that's when I headbutted him. And then I kept headbutting him. They ended up taking one of his teeth out of my head.
Joey,
that was going to be my Henzo technique.
Joey, do you know who Mike Petonio's training partner was for this fight?
No.
Well, he trained with Kaja, so John Matua was one of them.
It was John Matua.
400-pound John Matua of Tank Abbott fame. Yes.
Do you know what art that he practiced, Joey?
Kapakuyolua, something like that. The Samoan art of bone breaking. That's what it was called.
Right. I remember that, bone breaking.
There's some trivia. For those at home right there, Joey Venti, we're doing a little trivia on our Instagram. We're kind of getting it going. I need that one. You're going to have to put that one to
I will say, if you had short hair, that's a completely different fight because he drug the clock out an extra few minutes just by hanging onto your hair.
You know, and then the other thing too is I had my feet up against the fence and his guys were grabbing my toes and bending them backwards through the fence.
Kaja did this?
Well, sorry?
Kaja?
In the Petonio fight.
Those good people from San Pedro were messing with your toes.
Wait. The guys that are always talking about how corrupt the California State Athletic Commission is were bending your toes through the fence. Is that what you're saying? Are you going on record saying that?
Yep, I'm on record saying that.
I could see that happening.
Kaja, shame
they were
on
grabbing
you.
my toes and trying to twist them, trying to break them through the fence.
Shame on you, Kaja.
Yep.
You won't do a video on that.
No, we shan't.
I'm talking about him. All he does is make videos about the state of California. It's
corruption.
And you know what though? He's got a lot. There's a lot of truth there. There's a lot. The things that he says, there's a lot of truth, but man, sometimes he's reaching really far for it. I respect him. However, I do respect him.
I've got a question about the World Combat event. A buddy of yours you've brought up at least twice in this interview, Jerry Flynn. He fought on this card too. Did you get him his spot? Were you guys training partners at the time? How'd that go?
Yeah, I mean, I know that when they got a hold of me, they wanted to know if there was anybody else. So I wanted to get Jerry Flynn and Joe Malenko. And Joe Malenko didn't want to do it. Joe Malenko was there in my corner.
Okay.
But he didn't want to fight. Jerry did. And so we went.
Jerry had a very martial arts style to his pro wrestling, like you, right?
Yeah, he was I want to say Koshinkai or a rigid Japanese style. I know he trained in.
Okay, so Kyokushin.
Maybe. I don't really know.
The Dutch made that style famous, although it stems from Japan. All of the
Master Yami style.
Yeah, all the high-end K1 guys are phenomenal at it. Like Semi Schilt,
Andy
Andy Hoog. Yep.
Yeah, Andy Hoog.
Yeah, phenomenal. All right, so this is an 8-man tournament. Mike Bitonio is your opponent. His son does a decade on the offensive line for the Cleveland Browns and is going to be one of those first ballot Hall of Famers for people that play the offensive line. So Bitonio comes from good stock, legit tough dude.
Yes, he was.
And like that hair pulling technique that you experienced carries on to the Erik Paulson and Waring fight.
You're right. I remember that now. Paulson was pulling
Paulson was getting his hair pulled. He had a ponytail.
Right. He was getting his hair pulled by Warren.
James Warren.
Right.
Waring. Yeah.
I remember that.
If you guys go and watch that Paulson Waring fight, it's like almost 18 minutes long. It's one of the most savage, brutal things that you'll ever. It's like you're watching a guy's scalp like come off of the bone. Dude, it's barbaric.
That head stomps, soccer kicks. Yes, it is no rules.
Yeah, and Waring's fingers were crippled at the end of it from just clinching into the hair of Paulson. Wow. Your manager, Max Coates, is the one that lined this up.
Right.
At the time. How was Max to deal with?
Not bad at all. I didn't have any problem with him at all. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of, to me, I just go do my job and leave. I don't have to do a whole lot of stuff. I know that after my fight, I was in the dressing room, and my ring girl, when I was younger, I actually dated. And she came in to see how I was. And I said, "Oh, I'm fine," everything like that. And then Max comes in and goes, "I don't really like any of this premarital stuff."
What?
Yeah, but like, I guess he insinuated that I was having an affair with this girl. And I said, "Max, what I do is none of your business. So don't assume anything." And that's the only really confrontation I ever had with him. Other than that was, he'd bring me in to do seminars at his place and train the guys and do stuff like that. But for the most part, we never had any real talk except for that one time. To where he insinuated that I was going to have a premarital affair with this girl.
Premarital? You mean talking about extramarital?
Extramarital.
Well, whatever it is. I don't know what the hell he was talking about. I mean, I was married at the time, but it wasn't like I was going to have, it was an ex-girlfriend, and usually an ex-girlfriend, there's a reason why they're ex. Okay. I don't have an ex-girlfriend to have a fling with an ex-girlfriend.
Right.
She's an ex for a reason. So, but whatever. That's the only thing that I had to do with Max at all.
October 18th, 1996, Extreme Fighting 3. This is your first meeting with the matchmaker and owner of the organization, John Perretti, at this time. How was your experience with John?
Not bad. Again, like I said, I'm very quiet. I don't do a whole lot. I do my job. Whatever's supposed to be done, I do it and move on.
Kazunari Murakami is your opponent. And, at this time, you actually held the Fujiwara belt for 3 years. So it was kind of fitting that you had somebody from Japan as your opponent.
Yeah. And again, I think they called it a little bit too soon, but whatever.
It was a weird stoppage. It looked like they were stopping to check a cut, and then they waved off the fight.
I don't even remember being cut.
Or your nose. I think they were looking to reset your nose, and then they announced that it was over.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what happened in that. And again, I was always taught you don't ever argue with a referee. And so I just said, okay, fine.
John Donahue always did a real good job. I was pretty impressed with him. I mean, you're going to have, your stumbling blocks and stuff like that. I thought your ending was a little strange as well. But like at that time, Big John McCarthy was like rabidly barking orders, like, do something, work. Like it was just a constant stream of yelling, that was his referee style at the time, and Donahue was more laid back. I actually prefer that. Joe, did you see who his last fight's against? May 25th, 2000? Continental.
Dan Severn.
Yeah. Continental Free Fighting Alliance.
I have looked all over the internet. I even used Elon Musk's AI program to see if there's any footage of this fight, and I can't find it.
Can I preface the question?
Sorry?
Let me preface the quote. Let me kind of put the question out there before the answer starts. Dan Severn's your last opponent. So Dan Severn, if you look at his record, I'd say over half of his fights on his record are not real. Did he approach you about doing a work fight with this one?
No, we never talked about it at all.
Interesting.
Not at all.
Congratulations, Dan. We found one.
We found. How did the fight go? Because I've got no details except for second round.
I mean, I don't know what happened to me, but I just couldn't get on my game, and he had me down on the ground, and he basically controlled me the whole time on the ground. He really did. He did an excellent job of just controlling me, and I couldn't get him off. I couldn't move him. I don't know if I was done with the whole MMA fighting or not, but I just couldn't find my spot.
Your rhythm. Yeah.
Yeah. Your rhythm. Yeah. And it's kind of funny because I can remember asking Bill Wallace, Superfoot Wallace, how do you know when it's time to quit? And he says, when you ask how much money you're going to get paid. Because now it's not fun no more. And I just didn't have the fun no more. It just wasn't that. I tried to do one more fight after that, and it wasn't fun no more.
Did you respect Don the Dragon Wilson?
Very much.
Okay.
Very much. He's an excellent martial artist. And I've had an opportunity to talk to him a few times and that. Really like the guy. Really down to earth, really solid martial artist.
You did bodyguard work for Michael Jackson.
Yeah. Yes, I did. I did a bodyguard work for a lot of celebrities.
Can you tell us about Michael in particular?
He was the worst.
Unbelievable.
He was incredible. Pain in the ass, in my opinion. But he comes walking off the stage, takes that stupid red jacket off, and just kind of sticks it right into my chest, like I was supposed to take it. And I just let it drop to the ground, and one of his other groupies grabbed it and picked it up. And, he's like, I don't know. The best person I ever did. Wait.
We're not letting that slide. No. We got to hear about Michael, dude. Come on, man.
Nah, he just had I think the whole thing started because when the concert was getting ready to start, Tito wasn't there yet. And Tito came in on a helicopter.
We're not talking Tito Ortiz. We're talking Tito Jackson.
Tito Jackson.
Right. He came in on a helicopter over the Orange Bowl. They bring a ladder down, and he climbs down the ladder onto the stage. And Michael Jackson was so pissed that he did that. So I think that started the whole night off where he was pissed.
So like, did his voice, like the octaves, get higher when he was mad?
Well,
did it go deeper?
I couldn't tell. I mean, I couldn't tell whether his voice got higher or not. But see, the problem was he was outstaged, and that's what pissed him off.
Did he ever say, "That's it"?
No.
Get the kids. Get the kids.
Where
are the children at? Where are they at?
But like I said, he handed the jacket like I was supposed to catch it. I let it drop on the ground. That was my only real encounter with him the whole night. My main objective was to keep people going back to stage. When he went on a concert, I got in front of the stage and I made sure nobody was able to jump up on the stage or get off the stage or on whatever.
Who was the best? Who was the best to work with? And we got to see your face too when you do this.
What do you mean?
Go ahead. Yeah, you were getting your chin. That's it.
Sorry.
Okay. So who was the best?
Kenny Loggins.
I could see that.
Kenny Loggins was probably one of the best guys I ever did bodyguard work for. My first was Stevie Nicks.
I like Stevie Nicks.
Yeah, when she broke away from
Fleetwood Mac. Yeah.
Right, she was doing a concert, and Al Tracy was the one that got me the job.
What about Julio Iglesias?
He was kind of cool. He was, what made him kind of cool is, we went, again, the women were all older women that were great. And then we went to dinner and we all sat together on dinner. He didn't, there was me and I had one of my guys. And, all the guys were big wrestling group guys. And he had all of us sit together on the same table with him.
That's cool.
I mean, really, really nice guy.
That's really cool.
Really nice guy. All right, we good?
We are, sir. Let me tell you something. You are an absolute legend. Greatly appreciated. Bart Vale, I tracked you down in Florida after leaving you about 10 different messages. I appreciate you calling me back, man.
No problem, guys. I had a great time.
Thank you. Great meeting you.
Take care.
There you go. You too. Joey Venti.
My inner 18-year-old is very happy with me right now that I got to hang out with Bart Vale. I would have loved that in 95.
Dude, can you imagine like the hairsprayed chicks that we could have been just rubbing elbows with? The blue like eyeliner. Oh, that'd have been awesome. That'd have been awesome. All right, Joey, we got to come up with a plan. I got t-shirts coming next week. You and I are going to cut a separate video. I don't want to sell them, although I am open to that. Yeah. We certainly could. We got to figure out different ways to give them out. And I should by the end of the week be getting some like Noche, that UFC one-off event. I should be getting some Noche dice.
Noche.
In the dome. Come on, dude. The UFC event.
Oh, the Sphere.
The Sphere. Sorry. In the Sphere, they did like octagon shaped dice with Noche on them. Dude, they went from $39 to $19.99, and there's only one review on it. So I'm assuming only one person bought it, or they just put that review in on their own. So I bought 3 Noche dice. I think I may have bought them too early. You could probably get them wholesale for about $1 a piece because, the event is about a year ago.
Right.
So it's an event that was not sold out, honoring Mexican fighters with a Middle Eastern name for the event. And, they say it's a huge success, but like the merch didn't move. So I'm picking up like lots. I'm picking up the for sale items. And then, dude, I also got Aljamain Sterling. If you go to his website, I'm going to order it next week. I'm hesitating. Do you know those little buttons that you'd get like in grammar school where if somebody was running for class president, they'd like pin it on you? It says, I'm getting that. And there's like a peach on it. And it says Aljamain Sterling, and they're $5 a piece. It might be the worst MMA merchandise ever. So I'm trying to get like a bunch of really bad MMA merchandise, and we're going to give it away with our own stickers and t-shirts to people that go above and beyond, either in the comment section or if there's creative ways of making the news to plug our podcast.
Leave us a creative review.
A review would be good too, but you know what I mean? Like, your t-shirts, $15, shipping's another, 12 to 15. So I'm 30 in the hole right there.
Right.
You saying like, hey man, this is like a really good podcast. You should listen to it. I ain't giving a shit, dude. Especially when we're talking Noche dice. So like I ordered 3 of them, one review. There might even be 4 Noche dice in like circulation, bro. This is like a rare MMA like piece of memorabilia.
Very exclusive.
Yes. I don't want to tip my hat where I go and get gas, there's this Indian guy that runs it. He's got these honey packets that he claims, his words, not mine. It's like eating 15 Viagras.
Oh, okay. Send me some honey.
Dude, I think he's gonna backdoor me a box.
Backdoor, huh?
I think so too. I think so.
Way to use your words, Mike.
I think so.
He's gonna backdoor you some Viagra honey. Okay.
Those also might be in the mix. That's all.
Yeah.
If I can get it for $2 a pack, dude, I'm throwing them in there, dude. Dude, the people that listen to this podcast this far into the podcast, the likelihood of them getting laid is very low. These honey packets, it might encourage them to take the next step, Joe.
That's right. Be bold.
So I'm not kidding, dude. I actually had the conversation. You want box? You want box? I'm like, what am I going to do with a box, bro? What do you want? I give you a good deal. I give you a good deal. I'm like, all right. And I just
send them. I'll do a product review for the man.
just thinking about our listeners. That's all. So like, share, subscribe. We got to do some creative stuff to kind of do giveaways, plug it. Spotify is fantastic. Where we're having issues is YouTube and Apple. So we need help with both of those. Apple Podcasts. So Joey.
If somebody's got a really good following on Instagram and they want to repost one of your trivia things, that would be a good way to get the word out.
Get the Hawaiian bone breaking. Phrase it into a question. Let's put that on there.
I'll get that too tomorrow.
Awesome. All right, Papa. Do your thing.
Good seeing you.
Show you too. Bye-bye.